Ever feel like the resources and advice out there for women are missing something essential? I thought so too, which is why more than 6 years ago, I created She Said, She Said. I'm Laura Cox Kaplan, and after 3 decades in communications and then advocacy and now juggling motherhood and entrepreneurship, trust me, friend, I get it. Making a real impact takes more than just passion. It takes the right mindset, the right skills, the right investments, and the right community. On this show, we dive deep with incredible women from all walks of life who have been there. We uncover the secrets to building influence, navigating tricky relationships, and staying true to ourselves even when it's tough. And let's face it, it often is. I also throw in my own favorite productivity and life hacks, things that have shifted my perspective and might help you too. Wherever you are in your journey, my goal here is to leave you inspired to define success your way and to help you build the confidence you need to tackle your biggest goals. Subscribe today and let's unlock your full potential, your confidence, and your greatest influence. Hey friend, welcome to episode 300. I am so excited to have reached this milestone. It's kind of a big deal. So I am celebrating this week the past 6 years and an incredible array of guests, many of whom have been part of other collaborative efforts with me that are all designed to give you more of what you look for at She Said, She Said podcast and with She Said, She Said media and the other projects that are in my portfolio. Friend, you are the reason why I'm here and why I show up week after week. And I am incredibly grateful to not only reach this milestone with you, but to have been able to learn alongside you and alongside these incredible guests, and also to share some of my own perspective and some of the things that I have learned that I hope will help you too. I hope that's been the case, and I hope that it continues to be the case. Now, I'm hesitant to use the word community because it's overused, and I'm a Gen Xer, and we didn't grow up with an excessive use of the term community. We just built it and didn't really think about it. But that was, of course, before 9/11 and before a global pandemic and before the internet and before so many of the aspects of our lives that have changed the way that we interact so dramatically, before many of those things occurred. But community actually is the best way to describe this. We share, you and I, a point of view about women's leadership and the impact and influence that we can have both individually and collectively. And it is such a great thing. I am really grateful and consistently inspired by you, by the feedback that I get, by your engagement, and by the women who join us here. Now, friend, to mark this very special occasion, I want to explore a topic that resonates with so many of us. It's confidence, but more specifically, the intricate balance between confidence, hormones, brain fog, and that sneaky trap of rumination that often rides shotgun. Because we are jumping into fall and we're navigating all of the amazing back to school and post summer activities, even if you're not sending kids off to school, this is a transition period and our schedules can feel particularly hectic this time of year. For many of us, we are also navigating a significant amount of related stress. Brain fog, which is something that I have become all too familiar with, is more than just a feeling. And while there are lots of reasons why someone might experience it, I have learned that some of the most common reasons why we experience brain fog are actually deeply rooted in our brain chemistry. I have found this topic really fascinating, and I think you will too. Stress, for instance, triggers the release of the hormone cortisol, our body's primary stress hormone. While cortisol is essential for survival, chronic stress can lead to elevated levels of this hormone. And that matters because in excessive levels, it can actually shrink a key region of the brain that's responsible for memory and learning. It's called the hippocampus. So when we feel stressed, maybe over an extended period of time, it's not just an emotion. It is literally a complex reaction inside our brains that affect our brain's ability to function optimally. Add to that the various hormonal shifts that we experience throughout our lives. The biggies being puberty, maybe pregnancy or post-pregnancy, perimenopause and menopause. And it is no wonder that we sometimes feel like we're walking around a bit off. These various hormonal fluctuations can also affect the hormones that act as neurotransmitters. And I'm referring to things like serotonin and dopamine. Those two are most critical in mood regulation, focus, and memory. So imagine trying to navigate a busy intersection in a dense fog. It's disorienting and it's frustrating, and it can make even the simplest of tasks feel overwhelming. Now, that's a particularly common form of brain fog in a nutshell, and it is no surprise that it can impact our confidence. When we're constantly struggling to remember things and we're second guessing ourselves and we're feeling like we're just not firing on all cylinders mentally, it's easy to start doubting our abilities and to withdraw from things that we've once loved. Several years ago, I was presenting on stage in a corporate setting, a particularly formal setting, and I was in front of an important audience of corporate execs and of colleagues. And in the middle of my presentation, I completely and totally lost my train of thought. My mind went entirely blank for what felt like an absolute eternity. It wasn't, but it felt like it was. I just stood there, paralyzed, until thankfully a colleague who happened to be co-presenting with me stepped in to fill the void. That helped me regain and ultimately regroup more or less in the moment. But that moment shook my confidence for a number of weeks. But as I reflected on that experience, I finally recognized that I was allowing that cycle to have more influence over me than it needed to. And by continuing to relive it over and over without an escape hatch from moving forward, I realized I didn't have the right tools to ultimately break that pattern or to reclaim my confidence. Now, that's a great example of how rumination can work. We're maybe feeling foggy and then something happens that shakes our confidence. For many of us, I think it's more common to experience maybe a series of setbacks that really pile up and they begin to chip away slowly at our confidence. And if we aren't able to then shift our perspective and stop the cycle of rumination, all those things can begin to add up to additional levels of stress, and our brains release counterproductive levels of all of those tricky brain hormones that I mentioned a moment ago. And then our confidence tends to take a hit. When confidence hits that low point, it's really easy to get stuck in a loop of negative self-talk and then overthinking. We replay past mistakes and we worry about future scenarios and we berate ourselves for not being good enough. This kind of rumination only amplifies our stress and it further clouds our mental clarity because it triggers those tricky brain hormones that I mentioned a moment ago and it sends them into overdrive. Now, recognizing that everyone's situation is unique, for most of us, under reasonably normal circumstances, we have the power to break free from this cycle. And sometimes the most effective strategies for doing that can actually seem a bit counterintuitive. So today for this episode, I want to share 4 specific strategies that can help you break out of that cycle. The first is, instead of fighting against brain fog, try to accept it as a temporary visitor. Sometimes the more that we resist or maybe freak out about brain fog, the more power that it actually seems to have over us. Acknowledging its presence can actually help us navigate it more gracefully. And instead, take a step back and think about those specific drivers that might actually be causing it in the first place. Ask yourself, are there specific things that you can address to help you create more agency, more personal agency around the stress that might be causing your brain fog? Now, how can you do that? One way is to schedule what I like to call a worry audit. Now, that might sound a bit strange, but what I mean is setting aside a specific amount of time, either each day or each week, to think about and audit those worrying thoughts that might be contributing to your overall stress level. Some of those things may indeed be completely out of your control, but some you might be able to maybe delegate or get help from someone else to solve. Or you can put some of those things on a special checklist so that you can park them for later consideration and thought. Maybe they are things that you really need to think through more deeply, but they're just clogging your brain in the moment. By building in a set time when you'll think about the stuff that's bugging you and contributing to your stress, it can help you create greater awareness around some of the specific stressful drivers that you might have more control over than you realize. And creating time for this can also help you free up valuable brain space to focus on other things. Another great tip is to just step away and do something else, maybe something that is completely brainless. When your brain feels overloaded, it can be helpful to engage in an activity that requires minimal mental effort, like taking a walk outside or reading a book or listening to your favorite soundtrack, writing, or just doodling. These kinds of activities can help quiet the mental chatter, and it can help create important space to maybe release the fog and allow greater mental clarity to emerge. If you do this, it's a good idea to set a timer though, so that it doesn't begin to become a rabbit hole of procrastination. Now, because negative self-talk can be a major contributor to both chipping away at our confidence and also creating additional stress, remember to talk to yourself like you're a friend. We often speak to ourselves in ways that we would never dream of speaking to someone that we care about. So the next time you catch the voice inside your head being particularly critical and negative, try talking back to it and reframing those thoughts with kindness and compassion. You could even take a minute to write down a couple of specific ways that whatever you drop the ball might actually be a positive. Reframing here can be a particularly positive tool. There is a lot of great research that indicates a link between long-term stress when it's left unaddressed and brain fog, as well as decreased cognitive function as we get older. So these practices, when we establish them early, when they're coupled with other healthy things that we know we should be doing, like exercising and eating in a healthy manner, they can help protect our brains as we age. And finally, just as we're celebrating this 300th episode this week, it's a great reminder of how celebrating your small wins can help to counter stress and build more confidence. When we are in a cycle of brain fog and low confidence, it's easy to overlook our accomplishments. But taking time each day to acknowledge even the smallest and more minor victories can do a great deal to make our confidence level a bit more resilient, which in turn can help us create a barrier that further helps us counter stress. Plus, it triggers all the positive energy that comes when we reflect on and feel grateful. Friends, speaking of gratitude, I am grateful to have you here with me on this journey. It is such a joy to engage with you here and on social media each week. So please be sure to send me some feedback and your ideas and your perspective on today's topic, or frankly, any of the topics that we've discussed or that you may have on your mind. I'd really love to hear from you. Until next time, take care. And remember, She Said podcast is a weekly production of She Said Media.